Hi, this is Nate from ZeldaInformer.com, and I'm here to deliver our first weekly video cast, and we're going to talk about Zelda Wii, my expectations for it, some things I want to see. But first, before we get into, wishful thinking, let's talk about what we already know. On January 10th, 2010, I wrote an article that didn't really talk, it listed all of the things that we already know about the game. Now, we don't know a lot, so bear with me here, but first let's run through that list. The first thing we know is that the game has been in development for a long time. If it does come out at the end of this year, it will have been at least 4 years with a rumored possibility of 5. That rumor came from Game Informer magazine in January 2007. So the next thing we also know is that Miyamoto is very aware that Zelda Wii is going to need some really big and new ideas. One big thing they did with that is bringing the Nintendo DS team that worked on Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass in on the Zelda Wii team to make the team just that much bigger and have that many more ideas floating around. So apparently they are aware that Twilight Princess kind of was stale. It was too much of the same. And they know that, so that's good. The next thing we know for sure is that Link is going to be the oldest he has ever been. And it's going to be taking place in a new era, and the storyline progression is going to be completely different than what Twilight Princess had. The significance in that is I don't really think it's that much. So we'll just go on to the next point. Zelda Wii is going to use Motion Plus. It's a given. There's going to be a lot of movement, so we are told from interviews. Great. I'm not against Motion Plus. So far, Motion Plus has done some great things, and I will say I even enjoy Wii Sports Resort because of Motion Plus. So let's go past that. Zelda Wii is going to be different than all the titles before it, but it's not going to be radically different. There was 2 quotes last year around E3, a little bit after E3, from both Eiji Aonomu and Shigeru Miyamoto. Eiji said the game was going to be drastically different. This kind of coincides with what was said earlier by Miyamoto about Twilight Princess. Miyamoto said before Twilight Princess came out that Twilight Princess would be the last Zelda of its kind. And no one really knew what that meant. Then Eiji Aonomu came around and was talking about how it's going to be so different. You're like, great, Zelda's never going to be the same. Then Miyamoto swoops in, just like he's famous for upending the tea table, and says it's not going to be radically different. What's that mean? What are they telling us? Like one of the head producers is telling us it's going to be different. Miyamoto said Twilight Princess is the last of its type, and then Miyamoto turns around and says it's not going to be radically different. What are they getting at? That leads well into the next thing that we do know. The formula is changing. And I think that is what Eiji Aonomu was referring to when he said it's going to be really different. And it also might be why Miyamoto said the last one of its type before. Although I think that had more in relation to motion controls instead of the classic controller. The dungeon field method is going to get changed up. How much it's going to get mixed up, what's going to happen? Are we going to be going to dungeon to dungeon to dungeon to dungeon, and then a town with a bunch of stuff for a few hours, then back to a dungeon? I don't know. But it is going to be different than what it's been. So that's a nice little talking point, I guess. A lot of rumors, a lot of speculation you can make about that. The next thing we know for sure is Zelda Wii is going to be absolutely gorgeous. We're not really sure exactly how. We do know that Monster Hunter Tri had a big influence on Eiji Aonomu and the Zelda team. They were extremely impressed. It was almost as if they didn't know the Wii could do graphics as well as Monster Hunter Tri does it. I don't know if I'm going to like it or if I'm going to hate it, because if they go as detailed as Monster Hunter Tri is, the Wii is not an extremely powerful system graphically, so to do these type of graphics, it has to deliver it to you in sections. I don't know if I would like that in a Zelda game. I hope they don't go that route, but I kind of want them to. I want to get the best looking Zelda we can possibly get. Now, to me, especially with the Wii's power, that's a cel-shaded toon style Zelda. Yes, I liked the Wind Waker, but we're not going to get that. They've already confirmed, I think, last year that cel shading is not going to be an option for this title. Now, they have said that they haven't decided on a graphical style, but they already confirmed no cel shading. They can obviously change their minds, but it's pretty doubtful. We're going to see a realistic. It's just, what type of realism are they going to go for? Realism, you know, fantasy, cartoony realism, or realism like real world, you know, like I'm looking at you, you're looking at me. I don't know. That also kind of goes into the next point. There might be a flight mechanic. Now this is pretty much 100% speculation. Eiji Onomu was talking late last year about, you know, some ideas he's had rolling for the Zelda Wii title, talking about his son, and his son, you know, kind of mentioned something about flight when he was playing Spirit Tracks, and Eiji kind of said that wouldn't that be kind of fun. Now, we did have a flight mechanic in Twilight Princess. It was for a mini game. It didn't last very long, but it was pretty fun. We've had gliding in the Wind Waker. You know, you hop on your Duca Leaf and you glide around. And in Majora's Mask, we had kind of a flight/gliding mechanic when you were a Duca scrub. So it wouldn't necessarily be completely new, but to be able to fly for any extended amount of time and really fly, not glide, that's a pretty new idea. I don't know if I want that in Zelda Wii, but I'm not going to be opposed to it. You know, I didn't really like the train in Spirit Tracks, or the boat, the steamboat mechanic in Phantom Hourglass, but I did love the sailing boat in the Wind Waker. So, who knows? I will trust Nintendo if they decide to go that way. Another thing we know for sure is that we're going to get a Wii trailer at E3. They confirmed that pretty much last year, and with Iwata stating that the game's coming out this year, you can all but confirm there's going to be a trailer. In fact, if it is coming out this year, we might hear about it before E3. So now that that's all out of the way, that's what we know. What do I want Zelda Wii to be? I want the less equals more strategy. Less dungeons equals more content. I'm not saying, ideally, give me 9, 10, 12, 15 dungeons. Have them be super long, epic boss fights, lots of cool items, lots of unique stuff, with an open overworld, great cities, maybe voice acting. Controversial, I know. I want all that. Realistically, I can't expect it. More. Instead of 8 dungeons, do 5. And maybe 6, you know, for an ending dungeon. What you do with those 5 dungeons is you make them twice to 3 times as long as the current, with all new puzzles. Sure, you can have a few of the classic puzzles. I'm kind of sick of block pushing, but new ideas, new puzzles, and new items. Items that I have to use in every dungeon, or have an option to use, or use this. And that kind of goes into the boss fights that are in the dungeons. Maybe 2 or 3 mini bosses, then a big boss at the end. Have the big boss be able to be beaten multiple ways. Not just, I find an item in the dungeon, I use that item on the boss. Because then I already know how to beat the boss. Not only that, but I'm probably going to be hitting the boss in the eye, so it's kind of time to move on from the eye, or showing me the weak point all the time before the fight even starts. I mean, you know, you walk in on the boss, there's a little cutscene, boss pops up, you can already see what you need to do before the fight even starts. It's kind of old. Now, they can stick with that if they want, to kind of keep the casuals in it. Maybe they'll put in that whole thing they did with New Super Mario Bros. Wii, the little help system they got. I forget what it's called, but basically if you die enough times, it gives you an option to let the computer, like playing Luigi, play through the level. And any time you could step in and play for the computer, or you can just let him finish the level, or whatever, and then hop back to your guy and do the level after him, because he kind of shows you how to beat it. I don't know how well that system would work in Zelda, but it would work for the casuals. And the casuals is a crowd that Nintendo's been tapping into. So you could make the game harder and then give this the super guide, that's what it's called. The super guide option for the casuals. Great. The less equals more strategy it's not a new concept. Other games have done it. I think it would work well for Zelda Wii. To put less in the game, but make what's in it have more value. Twilight Princess had a wide open field, a lot of dead space, a lot of why am I riding for 10 minutes from here to here with nothing to do in between. Well, you eliminate that. Make the field smaller with more to do. I'm not suggesting you go to Majora's Mask. I hate to mention Majora's Mask, but I'm not saying that go to the Majora's Mask size. I want it bigger than that. But if it's going to be bigger, it needs to be fuller, if you kind of catch my drift. So if it gets to the point where they're making the overworld so big that they can't get it filled with enough stuff to keep you entertained, then less equals more.